Hello everybody. Unfortunately, today is a day where I have to drag some books. Hopefully, this will be the only negative video that's coming out for Vlogmas, but here we go. I gotta go through it. So, this format of video is from Edward Avila. He does makeup, so it's a completely different context of talking about things and rating them, but I'm just gonna borrow what he does and put my own spin on it. So he talks about hits and I guess she lits, but today I'm gonna talk about the worst books and the books that I'm kind of medium about, which are the I guess she lits, and then the hits I'm gonna have in their own video where I talk about the best books I read this year. So I'm going to start off with the books I'm lukewarm about and then go into the terrible that I've read. So the very first book is Under and Senti right here. I can't put this in the worst books category, so I couldn't give this book less than a 3-star. Because it's about a transgender person who finds love against all odds and against these issues that like immigrants face. And it was like, it was such a like triumphant, sweet story that I cannot drag this book. But the fact that we didn't know who Santi was and he was one of the main characters really made me knock this book. So I think you should read this book, but at the same time, Santi is so underdeveloped and not explained at all, not given any depth, any backstory, and so it was very like one-sided sort of book. So that's why I don't hate this book. I don't love it, so that's why it's going on the list. This book is by Johnny Garza. The next book is Kingdom of the Feared by Karen Maniscalco. Now, last year I read Kingdom of the Curse, and that's one of the worst books I've ever read in my life. It was like all filler, but this book was much better. Huge increase in the skill of writing, and yeah, really blew me away. I can't talk about it because it's the third book in the series, but just so you know, Kingdom of the Wicked is like a 3-star. Kingdom of the Curse is like a 2-star. And it's just a filler book. And Kingdom of the Feared is very good, and there's a big jump and improvement in the writing. So, just so give you a heads up about that. The next book is Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. And it's on this list because I have a love-hate relationship with it. Like every book on this middle list I have a love-hate relationship with. Now this is about Queenie, who is going through a breakup, and she has a lot of self-destructive tendencies, and she's trying to find herself, and she keeps hooking up with guy after guy and not really learning that she should not be, like, it's not shaming her, but the way that she's hooking up with these guys is not safe for her. And so you're reading, it's such a great book. Like, I love this book, but Queenie is so self-destructive. And she's just self-destructing. She's getting with people she should not get with, people who are not treating her right. And you're just yelling. This is one of those books where you're yelling at the book the whole time. Like, what are you doing? Get it together. Like, that sort of thing. And Queenie is highly intelligent, so the way that she's acting so destructive is not in line with her character. So I'm like, I don't think this character is very consistent. So that's why I love this book. But it was also so frustrating because we saw that Queenie was intelligent, but she was not acting in her best interest. So it was a very frustrating read, but I love it. So I have a very love-hate relationship with that book. The next book is Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan. This is a enemies with benefits relationship between a curse breaker and a archaeologist, and they have to work together to break this curse that is on this haunted house. Now, I love Rosie Danan. She's amazing. Like, this book is like, she's a good writer, but the plot is constructed for spice, and that's the same issue I have with Fear the Flames, which I'm going to talk about. And so the whole plot of the book is so the two characters get together, and I wish that wasn't the case. And it was like Rosie was trying to put as much spice in the book as possible, and it just ruined it. Like, the whole point of the book was spice, so it ruined it. But I love her. I've read, I think, all her books. So she's got a werewolf book coming out next year. So I will be reading that. I'll keep continuing to read everything that she writes. But this book was like 3-star or less. So now we're going to talk about the worst of the worst, the 2 stars and the 1 stars. So, Not That Kind of Ever After by Lucy Adams. Don't read it. Do not read it. Do not read it. This book was so rushed. As the book went on, the chapters got shorter and shorter. And I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here. You got a little tired of writing this book. The chapters just start getting shorter, shorter, shorter. Writing is getting more lazy as the book goes on. The main character blocked out her name. She's insufferable. She's so selfish. She's obsessed with her best friend to the level it's like, are you in love with your best friend? And that wasn't explored. She was just like obsessed with her best friend. So could not stand. And the character, to be fair, she was supposed to be a terrible character. But still, I did not love this book. 2 stars, I guess. Do not read this book. It's not good. It's really not. Now, the next book is very loved. It's 7 Years Slip by Ashley Boston. Her name is Ashley Boston. And this didn't work for me. I mean, I can't really say it's a 2-star. Fine, 3-star. But I just did not like it. But it's on this list because the 7 Year Slip, the magical element of this book, did not hold water for me. It didn't really make sense. It didn't really work. The way that the 7 Year Slip and reality you had like essentially 2 timelines, that did not make sense. And I don't want to explain it too much because it'll spoil the book, but the way that she created the 7 Year Slip didn't have logic, and so that was a huge reason that I just could not overlook. And I already didn't love this book, but the magical element not really working and not being logical for me made me just completely not like this book. So sorry, Ashley Boston. I've read you before, but I don't think you're for me. But yeah, so really, really not a terrible book by any means, but it just didn't work for me. This is A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This book was a huge disappointment. Like all year, all the fantasy romance I've read, so disappointing. Like, there's so much wrong with it. Ugh. Like, I don't know where to begin, but was not impressed with the writing, the world building. There was this big twist at the end of the book that I already saw coming, so I was really not impressed. Really not a fan, and I will not be continuing the series. I'm sorry. Too predictable, and didn't blow me away. The next book is Through the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. It's her first book, so, that's a good achievement. But if I were to narrow it down to one thing, too much spice. And I love spice, so this is odd of me to say, but this plot was constructed to create spice scenes. And we just didn't need that. I think this is going to be a relatively long series. You have plenty of time to build up the physical chemistry with the two characters. You don't need to have this much spice. So, hard to narrow it down, but the world building wasn't great. The line, touch her and you die, is in there. It's a lot of, overly done lines that are in that book that did not need to be in the book. So, not for me. Next is Circe. I'm done with Madeline Miller. We just don't get along. Circe, it just talked about really great Greek myths. I have the Odyssey right here, and this book was shortened to a chapter and a half, and there's so many amazing stories in Circe that should have been their own book. That should have been this long, but they were a paragraph that was took up this much on the page. So it was like reading a bunch of footnotes, because throughout Circe is on her own island, and Hermes comes and stays with her, visits her time to time, and he's telling her everything that he's heard. So you're just hearing stories about what Hermes is telling Circe, and you're just hearing stories. You're not in the story. You're just hearing Hermes tell Circe about stuff that has happened, instead of her being the main character of her story. And it's just way too many Greek myths thrown in there that deserve more than just a paragraph. They deserve their own book. So, someone who loves Greek myths, I did not like to see the stories of Jason and Icarus and the Minotaur all just boiled down to one paragraph. That just did not work for me. Now, the absolute worst book I've read this year. I bought. Unfortunately, that is very sad. And it is Lessons in Corruption by Jonah Dowling. And I know you're saying you should have judged it by the cover. I know, I should have. This book is about a teacher who is fake dating the dad in a motorcycle gang, but she's really dating the son who's her student. And I thought this would be dark. I thought this would introduce me to dark romance, but it wasn't dark at all. But that's not the problem. This is the worst written book that I've read all year. But why did I buy this? That's a real problem. Now, I can't sit here and read you the entire book, and I wish I could, so you get the idea of how bad it is, but there's so many quotes that the whole book proves to you how bad the writing is, but the only quote I could find was, "There's no God in this bedroom, Chris. Tell me what I am, your king." So the son, he goes by king, and he's always telling her to call him king. It's just he sounds so unrealistic. He's larger than life, but it's not dark at all. Not well written, ridiculous. And I just wish I could read this whole book to you to prove how bad it is, but it's really bad. There's no depth. It's laughably bad. So, anyway, I could go on and on, but let's have this be short. Hopefully, this will be my last negative video other than my wrap-ups that are coming up. But I bought some of these books, so that's on me. PSA, make sure you read samples before you buy books. 90% of the books I read samples first. If you're in the store, just read a little bit of it. But I ordered this online, so I didn't read the sample. But I usually read samples first. But always read the sample before you buy a book. Never buy a whole series without reading the author first. So this doesn't happen to you. Needless to say, I will not be continuing the series. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. And I'll talk about books I actually like. Okay, bye.